Hello and welcome to a new episode of Startup Mavericks from Berlin Startup School. In this podcast, we interview founders and startup coaches about different topics. And today I'm really happy to introduce one of our startups. Tobias and Martin von Kelvin Green are here. Could you please quickly introduce yourself and what you're doing?
Of course. Thank you so much, Tino, for having us. We are very, very excited to be here. Maybe first a little bit about Kelvin Green. So Kelvin Green helps heat grid operators to decarbonize their heat grids. And the question is really why? Why did we start this, right? The issue is that over 80% of heat grids are still based on fossil fuels. And that's something that really shocked us when we started Kelvin Green, and is one of the key drivers. So what we do is we help these heat grid operators along 3 steps, basically with digital transformation plan. So through our software, you can answer a couple of questions, and then it basically generates a report, a plan on how to decarbonize your heat grid. The second then is to go to the implementation planning, and the third is the intelligent heat grid steering, because the heat grids of the future are going to be much more complex than the ones that we have at the moment. And you also asked to introduce ourselves,
yeah,
right?
Well, this was already perfect. This elevator pitch.
Okay, we started with that. So we are Martin and Tobias, and I'm Tobias, one of the founders of Kelvin Green. From my background is international business, so I studied business in university, both bachelor's and master's. My professional career, I started at KPMG as a strategy consultant. I then moved to DNF, a company initiative that Martin founded a couple of years ago, 12 years ago, I think. And basically my task at DNF was to come up with new business models based on all the innovation projects that DNF does. And one of these, the results of this is Kelvin Green as a company that we founded together.
Martin, is there anything that you can add to this?
That was already very exhaustive and yes, well, first of all, also thanks from my side for having us. So it's a great pleasure. I'm Martin, one of the 2 or let's say 3 founders already. So we have a CTO right now as well. And I have a background in communication and marketing. I worked with McKinsey for a while and then founded DNF as a non-profit organization 12 years ago. And with a focus on policy making and all the frame conditions for climate protection and green tech businesses. And I think now we are in a situation where climate protection really becomes starting through and becomes also a business. So it's that was the point where I decided also that it's a good point of time to tackle a new challenge.
So, and how did you come up with this specific idea? Was there a moment in which you were like, oh, this is missing, or was it an observation over some time?
I think a mixture of everything. I think we had a continuous discussion, Tobias and I, on what's the most urgent thing to do right now. And then we quickly realized that particularly the heat sector has to be decarbonized, which there was little progress in the recent years. And within the heat sector, we then saw that heat grids and district heating is a very interesting topic, because it's still, as Tobias mentioned, mostly fossil still. And at the same time, we need district heating, particularly in cities and urban areas, to have only a little chance, basically, to decarbonize the whole heat sector at all. So we started focusing on that. And then, it became more and more clear what we're going to do and how we can help, because without digitalization and automation, we won't make it within that time to come to the CO2 neutral heat in that sector.
Yeah, and I guess, of course, it's a quite big topic, especially nowadays. So how did you choose to work with each other? Was it like more or less match made in heaven because you worked already together at DNF, the company that you, or the institution you founded before? Or how come? And do you still believe that it just comes with blessing, or are there also lessons when you know each other so well? What can you recommend our listeners?
I think that, well, first of all, I think it's still a blessing. I think that we know each other so well, especially when building a startup, which is such a huge challenge with so many ups and downs. Just last week was like a roller coaster from like being super sad, questioning everything, to being very, very excited. And I think in these situations, it really helps when you know each other, when you know how you react in situations, and also when you know how you can support and what that other person needs. How it came that we actually started working on this was first, of course, in Martin's role as the founder of DNEV and my role as entrepreneur in residence to basically come up with a startup. But then I still remember I think it was one afternoon where I received a call from Martin. I was like, we just talked over the phone, so there was nothing really that we had to discuss. And he was like, would you be interested in actually like starting Kelvin Green together with me? And I was like, oh wow, the almost the famous founder of DNEV now wants to start a company with me. And I was immediately super excited because I really enjoy working with Martin, and I also think we both have a business background, but we complement each other very well in the way we think, in the way where we also, business is a very wide field where we focus in that area. So mostly a blessing.
So you chose him because he did the good work before, most probably?
No, I think we chose each other, so it's like...
more romantic than I thought.
Yeah, but I think it's, as Tobias mentioned, so we worked together and we figured out that it's a very good match, and we realized that we, can achieve good things together. And leverage each other, and so that was, and we like each other. I think this is also you're asking for what's important for your listeners. I think the first thing is that you have. It's very good if you have a good feeling with each other, if you can trust each other. I think that's really the foundation. And if you have the chance to work together in advance, I think that's very helpful. And then as well, the complementary, so you need a sense of that you are on the same mindset but have complementary skills, and I think that's very important. And so we had a very good match, I think.
We will see over the next months how your startup will progress. No, but I believe so too.
For the 7th year.
Exactly, the very famous 7th year. So coming back to your solution, who is buying your solution, and how does it look like specifically? What he, she, I think we're talking about a special institution, right, would then get?
Mm-hmm. So maybe I can start with that because, our target audience, like the typical customer of what we do, is the technical leader or the managing director of a municipality or another heat grid district heating operator, because they are now in the situation that they have to transform their heat grids. And maybe they also want to build new green heat grids, so both of it. And so they get in touch with us, or we get in touch with them. And because they have, it's a complex thing. It's not done like this. So they want to know, they need information. They want to know, how is there a funding scheme or a subsidy for doing that, and can we get that, and how to do this also with limited resources. How can they do that also with coming from a completely different technical situation, and they have to really transform over the next years a lot. And so we'd like to support them on their journey to a CO2 neutral grid. And what they get is, in the first stage, they get, of course, advice, because I think we have seen a lot already. We know a lot about the regulatory framework, about the subsidy schemes and the funding schemes they can get. And also we have a very good network to specialists, to heat engineers, etc., etc. So we can help them with advice in the first step. And the second step is that we believe that if they want to do this very big transformation, it makes and they in the beginning they need to gather a lot of data for that, and then they generate a lot of data out of that. And for us, it's crystal clear that they need a software for doing that instead of using 100 different Excel stuff, and they do that, and then maybe they get a result out of that. But some weeks later, they have to redo that because plans will change and transformation is dynamic, and then they can start from the beginning, and that's not very efficient, and that costs time and so on, and we don't have time. So the software we provide saves them money, saves them time, which is very important, and saves them also chaos, and so I think that's what we can offer them.
We have a special section in our podcast. Maybe you already know it by now, which is either or. I will ask you, or I'll give you two options, right? On the one hand, I will do this with you, Martin, and then another one with you, Tobias. So please, sharp answers, right? Or choose one, and then afterwards we will discuss it. Let's go. Number one, family or business, Martin?
Family business.
Number two, Tobias, software as a service or manual solution?
Software as a service.
Number three, B2B or B2C, Martin?
B2B.
Coal mining or wind energy, Tobias?
Of course, wind energy.
And last but not least, number five, Martin, radical change or slow change?
Radical but sustainable change.
All right, interesting. Was there something where you disagreed?
No, I think in general we were pretty much aligned. I think the key was that Martin said family business, and I think that fits very, very well, because like when you start a startup, and we both have families, right? Yeah. It basically starts to intertwine, and you really have to make time for both of them, because you have responsibility to both of them. And I think family business was a very smart answer.
So how do you manage your family business?
I have so whenever I'm with family, I'm 100% focused on family, and whenever I'm business, I'm 100% focused on business. What I usually do is I have a small son at home, and he tends to wake up at 6 in the morning, so we always have 1.5 hours together, playtime in the morning. Then I get ready for work, and then I'm 100% at work, and then I try to be home for dinner so that I see him before he goes to bed.
Same for me. I get up and then I have playtime. No, just kidding. No,
for me it's a little bit different. My daughter wakes up like at 8 or 9 if she doesn't go to school, and so I have between 6 and 9 to work. Yes, but it's a challenge actually, of course. But I see my daughter every second week, and then I of course reserve some time. But she's 10 years old, so she's already quite autonomous, and so but I still reserve clear time where I can spend, or the quality time I can spend with her.
Yeah. And Martin, you chose B2B. You are yourself with your startup in the B2B sector. Was this the reason you chose it, or is there a general preference to build companies that are B2B focused?
I mean, of course, every customer deserves to be served, but I think from the background at DNF as well, we already had a lot of contacts with, of course, with companies, because it's as well like a business network, membership organization for businesses that have solutions in the field of climate protection and energy efficiency. So that was kind of naturally going into that, and actually I also like our customer or potential customers a lot, what they do, because municipalities say they are, sometimes quite small, but they do a lot of things in their community, and they often, they start from broadband to heat to electricity to swimming pools, public swimming pools, etc. So they have a lot of, stuff to do, so I really think that's quite impressive with their small size, what they deliver at the end to their community at the end of the day. And very often they're then also quite pragmatic, even more pragmatic pragmatic than it might look like in the first view, because they are public or publicly owned companies very often. But I like that a lot, and so I think it's a very interesting customer group.
There is a saying that there is more money in B2B than B2C, at least when it comes to like single customers, right? Compared to that, you can get way more out of one B2B customer than you usually can get out of one B2C. So we're talking business to business or business to customer here, businesses. But Tobias, I'm curious, what is your opinion about this specific target group? We're talking about municipalities, right? Isn't it quite hard to get money from them, or the whole process, isn't this super bureaucratic?
I'm not sure about too bureaucratic, to be honest. I think it's hard to get money from anyone. Sometimes depends on the product, of course. No, but of course you're right. It's usually these traditional companies that have municipal organizations. Typically, the city has a share in those companies, or sometimes at least, and that of course makes it more bureaucratic in the sense that they have to write public tenders if it's above a certain amount. Yes, there is additional bureaucracy, but for me that's also a little bit more fun, because it's easier to plan then in that way, no? Because when you do a tender, you know exactly what they're asking for, and then it's easier for us to identify people that actually have the problem, because I think that's what sales is in the end about. It's not about selling our product, it's about selling a solution to the problem that we have, and I think that's mostly what we do each day at the moment, is to identify people or companies that actually have that problem that we can solve.
It's true, but again here I would say, I believe that it's quite hard to approach them, no? Can you just call, or do you find the phone number quite easily? Or maybe
that's of course a big secret of ours. but I can say from our daily work that currently it's not so difficult to get in touch with them, because they really have an urgency and they have a problem, and they look for people that solve it. And at the same time, the capacity in the market of, for example, engineers that do that kind of transformation plans is very limited. So they looking for increasing productivity in their transformation plan. And just to give an example, we just beside that we approach them, and then we get recommendations and introductions, etc. So we have LinkedIn, etc. But then we just launched we organized a webinar this week for municipalities and heat providers, and we have more than 200 attendees subscriptions, registers for this webinar already, and I think that shows a lot, that there is really demand for that solution.
Would you then also say that you need to know your target group so well that, for example, something like a webinar will help them, or will on the one hand help them to understand the problem, and on the other hand will help you to sell? So was this something that you identified really target group specific to organize a webinar?
Again, sorry, like the last specific question?
That you were organizing a webinar specifically because this will help the target group too. So it's interesting for them to go there in terms of your own sales process.
Yes, of course. I mean, what the content of the webinar is of course, we don't do it alone. We have guest speakers there, and for example, from the ministry, and they tell what is the plan of the government right now, and we give, of course, we don't. For us, it's not a sales show. For us, it's getting to know customers. Okay. For us, it's getting to know their problems and questions as well, and also deliver a rapid, quick value add for them, so that they know what to do, what are the next steps, what do they have to consider, and we strongly believe that after that, of course, they will evolve something out of that. So, but it's not, for us, it's not a sales show. It's just really helping them. What do they have to know, and what is important for them right now. giving them internet information.
And how did you advertise it? So was there something, again, target group specific, Tobias, where you said, okay, this is how we can catch the attendees? Is it LinkedIn, in this case, social media? Is it, we'll send them all an email, but it will be still your secret where you get those emails from? But so how do you approach them or invite them? I guess this is the start of the funnel, right? So what is your strategy there?
I think we can share that, right? That we, of course, we use the normal channels like social media and so on. But what we specifically did, we sent 1,400 letters to each of the managing directors. Real letters to all of the managing directors and technical leads of all municipal utilities in Germany. Very beautiful letters in a very bright and yellow envelope. And I think that was a huge success in people signing up, but also people getting to know the Kelvin Green brand, and also people approaching us in advance and saying, hey, could you share more about what you're doing, and I need help from that. So I think it was successful. And a lot of fun of folding 1,000 letters.
We did it together with some friends
on a weekend. But I guess this is really interesting. So again, here, target group specific. Isn't this also the target group that is still used to an analog way of receiving these kind of things? Was this the thinking behind it? Why you chose letter, not email?
I would say it's of course the entire target group, they use emails and they also use social media, etc. But I think that a letter is producing more trust in that that's something real, because you can touch it and you have it in your hand. And if you're just the new kid in town, sometimes people don't know who you are and what you're doing. And I think then a letter is something more substantial, and it's not just going to the spam folder as easy as an email. And that was a little bit the background for that.
Yeah, and I guess it's the same for you, Tino, right? You get a lot of emails each day, and how many times do you just click no, I don't want to go to this this webinar or whatever? And how often do you actually get a letter that is in a beautiful yellow envelope, and then you open it, you're like, oh, this sounds interesting. Maybe I should go there.
I want to be surprised, as I have to admit. There are really interesting ways how to surprise me. I just recently got a letter that said something, please turn it around. And then it said, so we have analyzed it was about my LinkedIn profile. Here we can get you more leads. But this was interesting, at least. Huh? Yeah. So it's also about finding new ways and standing out from the crowd.
Just being different.
Thank you so much, Tobias and Martin, for being with us, sharing insights about this really specific target group, how to go there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.